the oatmeal thing.
No, that was an incident. Yes, we almost got divorced because I was a stickler for the Quaker oat instructions on the packet.
I don't think the fight, it was about the instructions. It was about dueling interpretations of the post-oatmeal aftermath.
Right, where a rare instance where we both agreed on what was intended to be communicated, but not what words were said. And that's really
event.
That's what most conversations with married people should be about. Did you use the exact right words to do that thing I already know you meant?
Exactly. Well, that's that. I would say that's the wrapping paper of what every conversation be about. The gift should be metaphysical currency earned by being right.
Yeah.
That is worthless, and in fact has unworth baked into its very metaphysical fabric. But what's this other incident?
Essentially a metaphysical, ethereal, flaming bag of dog feces. But you want it. But I want it, John.
I know. Well, you want it in the moment. I don't know if after the fact you're gonna want to have had it.
No,
because after that you might want to still have had a wife.
When I was alone in the kitchen remaking oatmeal, I wasn't happy with the prize I awarded myself. It may not have actually earned.
Okay, well, John, what's the other incident?
I was gonna say.
And why does my Google keep signing out? I just want to look at your doc, Google, please. What's the other incident?
Just wing it. The incident, John. I'll tell you my if you want to log in with my account, you can. My password is your social security number, which is 955-555.
You're a good friend. You're always there to remind me of my social security number. Yeah. What's the incident? Or I'm going to get as mad as Brooke was earlier.
The incident was when we were at dinner for your birthday, not to brag. I ran into someone from high school and she didn't really recognize me, even though she did ask me to a dance once. And I was like, oh, it's because my beard's so long and I look so old, so I'm gonna trim it down. But I used the wrong attachment, John.
What you're saying? It's too short,
sir.
No, I like it.
I like it. Yeah, but you have no taste. I look like a 500-year-old 14-year-old.
I love the response to a reassuring compliment being you have no taste.
Well, you just proved that.
You're too dumb to know how dumb you are. Well, anyway, it looks good. We'll see if the audience notices it, and it's going to be a very natural test because they won't have had any verbal heads up or whatever. Yeah. So we'll see what they think. I think you look youthful. I think it's good. I have had that experience though of like you do one stroke of it or whatever, then you're like, oh no, I've gone too far.
Did it in the middle, so I just had mutton chops.
Oh no. Hello, one and all, and welcome back to another episode of The Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. It's a Friday, which means Brett Erlich. Brett, how's it going?
You know, John, my beard hair is a little short by mistake.
I did notice that. I love that could be a mistake, but it looks good. Okay,
have you seen when you shave? It's a mistake.
Well, I'm gonna do it again. And the more you challenge me with those insults, the more likely it is to happen. So just get ready, everyone. I'm going to be clean shorn soon. Anyway, Brett, it looks good. We're gonna see what the audience thinks. And the comments are already coming in. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Okay, so we've got a lot of news to talk about, obviously, since this is still technically a political news commentary show. But we're very glad to have you here because we're gonna get to talk about some of the truly most awful people in the country. And I know what you're thinking, John, you constantly talk about people that are awful. That's true. But this is one of those days where they're awful and we get to make fun of them for it, which is way better than the alternative. So we've got that. We've got Elon Musk being the cringiest little baby boy. Oh, I can't wait to show you this video. It's so good. I don't even know if the video or the story is better. They're both. So we've got that. We've got changes coming to Title IX, very interesting. Really devastating change coming to Mississippi that's being described by politicians there as a modern day form of apartheid. So we'll talk about that. And in the aftermath, we're finally gonna get to the canceled comedian returning. Donald Trump's thoughts on Rihanna and your garbage people of the week, as well as ours. So lots of fun to come, Brett. Thank you for joining me for this.
It's great to be here. I was literally just feeling my face. It is crazy. I don't like the feel. I want there to be more hair.
It'll grow back in a week. We'll see. Okay, so please, everyone, hit the like button, share the stream so people know we're live. And as always, you can send us comments, tweets, super chats, and you can do that about literally anything you want. But if you can send in a particularly funny or insightful comment about Brett's new facial hair, you might win a Blue Apron gift card for $100. So how fun would that be? Anyway, that's a tough one. I don't know what it's. I don't know how to do that one. But anyway, lot to come. Brett, what do you think? Should we jump into this thing?
Let's do it, John.
Let's do it. Let's jump into this. I've shook my preview monitor. Apparently for weeks now, Elon Musk has been very worried about something going on Twitter. You might wonder, is it the fact that the entire service went down for literally hours 2 days ago, or the fact that you couldn't follow anyone, or they made a change to APIs that actually boned the entire sending of tweets and they have no idea what they're doing? No, it's not about that. That's big meta stuff. No, his concerns are much more personal. He doesn't feel like he's getting enough engagement on his tweets, and he is hounding his engineers to explain this. So you might recall, by the way, a week ago when he took his account private because a bunch of right wingers were saying that if your account was private, you get more engagement. And he immediately tested that out. And I thought that was sad because evidence-free claims being made by right-wing grifters is no way to run a business. It turns out it's sadder than that because he apparently wasn't doing it just to please them. He really wanted to see if he could get more retweets by making his account private. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that was the answer. And so on Tuesday of this week, he gathered a group of engineers and advisors into a room at the headquarters of Twitter. And big thanks to Platformer for breaking this story, which is now pretty much everywhere. Everyone go check out Platformer. He was asking them, why are his engagement numbers tanking? He says, this is ridiculous. I have more than 100 million followers and I'm only getting tens of thousands of impressions. I love, again, it's like the dragon sickness for money amongst billionaires. You get tens of thousands of interactions on your stupid half thoughts, and that's not enough for you. What number would be enough? Spoiler alert, Elon Musk, literally nothing, because like in so many areas of your life, it is a gaping black hole in your chest that you cannot fill with retweets. That's not actually how life works. In any event, employees showed Musk internal data regarding engagement with his account, along, interestingly, with a Google Trends chart. And what they found was, last April, he was at peak popularity in Google Trends. So this isn't just a Twitter thing. This is overall, what are people searching for? What are they interested in? He was at a score of 100. Today, he's at a score of 9. So if way less people are interested in you and searching for you and whatever, that's gonna necessarily have an effect on your engagement. So they had previously investigated whether his reach had somehow been artificially restricted. The shadow banning thing the right wingers constantly believe, or at least say, is afflicting them. And they found no evidence that the algorithm was in any way biased against him. And so he asked questions, he got answers. I guess we move on with our lives. Except not, he freaked out. He yelled, you're fired at the engineer who pointed these things out. Platformer has spoken with people at this meeting, including the engineer. They're not identifying that person because that person could be blacklisted from the entirety of the tech industry because that's what Elon Musk does. Anyway, to bring them all in, specifically because you don't think you're getting enough likes, to then fire the people that point out that they can't identify anything in the algorithm that'd be hurting you, and that it's just, that people have moved on to other stuff, is just sad behavior, really sad behavior, which is one thing, Brett. But this now influences an important social media network. He is going to make changes, not just to pay off the $1 billion in interest he has to do a year or whatever, but specifically to benefit his own reach on the platform. And that is, from the evidence of the last few months, incredibly inconsistent with changes that would be made to the platform that would benefit the platform or social discourse or whatever. What do you think?
Listen, I hope we get to a point in Silicon Valley where instead of getting blacklisted for telling the boss what's wrong, that person gets hired. Because isn't that what they said about Silicon Valley in the first place? And why are we saying that Elon Musk is not doing well? Isn't their whole mantra fail early, fail often? He is the pinnacle of that ethos. He has failed immediately upon taking the reins of that. We should build more statues for him at Twitter headquarters, and maybe that's why they sold all of their big statues, including the giant Twitter logo and the giant @ sign, so that they can fund, because they're out of money, a giant statue of Elon Musk. And now we know what pose to put him in, which is him going like this at someone who won't amplify his tweets on the platform he owns, because they said it's him.
Yeah.
And that's really the central takeaway, I think, from all of this is he thinks it's anybody's fault but his. Maybe he's just insufferable. Maybe he sucks that much that honestly he's failing at the game that Twitter is.
Yeah, well, and honestly, I mean, look, studies are showing that since he took over, overall traffic on Twitter is down about 9%. So yeah, your activity would be down about 9% too. All of this is very reasonable. I don't understand why this is so hard. But again, it would be reasonable if you were just interested in understanding how things actually work. If you just endlessly need more, me, more, well then no, you're not gonna be able to interpret all of this. And the issue is, like, some of you might be thinking, so why do you care? Like, if the whole point is that less people are paying attention to him, then John, why are you paying attention to him? Because it matters. It matters. It matters symbolically with him being so emblematic of this sort of like elevated God figure that is so undeserving of the praise given to them, praise that runs directly contrary to the actual way that they clearly think about the world and run their life and run their companies and all of that. But again, as I said earlier, it also matters because Twitter does still at this point matter. Until it's replaced by something that fills the same hole, what he does there does actually matter. In any event, the concern about identifying the engineer, I understand their concern because, and I will remind you, he has already fired Twitter employees who criticized him. That's what he does. It isn't even just restricted to Twitter though. Tesla employees are suing him, saying that they illegally fired them for complaining about his tweets and his strict return to office policy. So this is a guy who, when people criticize him or complain, which means disagree with a policy, he just fires them. He's CEO Karen. That's who he is. And I understand that there's randos on the internet that are like, yeah, that's good, because they want the power to just lash out in a knee-jerk fashion at anyone that disagrees with them. They desperately want that power. So they would say that that's probably what genius CEOs do. But it doesn't seem to be working for them. I'll remind you, by the way, when it comes to engagement, one of the changes that he made, aside from just breaking the site last week, is they added this little view count thing to literally every tweet, with the trick being, oh, then you'll see how much reach you're getting or whatever, and then everybody will be happy. Except that does not appear to have actually worked. Those numbers, by the way, are based on literally nothing. Like I talk to people who have sources inside of Twitter that say that has no correlation to anything having to do with people actually seeing it. But even if it did, the way that they showed that was they cluttered up the bar underneath the tweets. They made the actual like and retweet things smaller. It is plausible that people are doing less of that because it's now kind of annoying to do. Which, by the way, people complained about Twitter being very slow to roll out new features and stuff in the past. What they would have done if the old teams had been in charge is they would have tried this out as a test, actually looked into it, found out what effect it has, not just purely hypothetically, but in the real world. That is not what he's doing here. He has a random thought while he's sitting on the can, and then he dispatches the 3 remaining engineers at Twitter to do it with no thought whatsoever to the actual effects. And so again, this is just no way to run a company. Sorry, right. I know I have a lot of thoughts about this. What do you think?
No, but like the thing about there's a lot, but to do the likes and add that to the bottom, that's like impressions in advertising. Like you get 1 billion impressions for putting a tiny sign up in the corner of Times Square. It's a number invented by the advertising industry to justify charging you a lot for running ads. An impression is not an engagement. The engagement is the important part. And one of the good things that Silicon Valley says that they've brought to the entire advertising industry is actual metrics as opposed to fictional ones like impressions. They can tell you like the engagement probability. And so what the problem is with Elon Musk is now there is proof. He just wanted to give people big numbers. You want to see a bigger number than like 5 likes. You want to see 1,000 of something. Yeah. But now I look at the total views versus the engagements. And what's happening, obviously, is probably there's enough information for Elon Musk to realize why he's failing. He just has bad tweets. He just has bad thoughts. things that people see and don't engage with. And because they don't engage with, because he's just getting more and more annoying over time, because he's doing the same thing more poorly, people are essentially giving him bad grades that the algorithm is chewing on and just not surfacing to people anymore. Yeah. And pretty soon though, it'll probably be just his actual friends, because he's like, if you don't like what we serve you, go to the For You tab. People do that. Then it'll just be his fans. Then he'll get a healthy number again, and then he'll start working his way back up. But he has to shed all of this in the meantime. And the last thing is like that dynamic that you started off this like part of it with, of Elon Musk, kind of you pointing out he has this narrative about him, and that narrative is false. Pointing out that a narrative is false is like Elon Musk fans' favorite thing to do. The Oscar Nunez of it all. Like actually, that's not true. And I'm gonna debunk what all these, sheep believe, because I'm a lion. What they reveal in rejecting all these obvious bits of evidence that are counter to their narrative is that they just picked the guy. There's nothing about him that's great. It's just that they picked him, and now they're too embarrassed to admit that the sky's blue and that this guy is not actually Iron Man.
I agree. And by the way, it is such a fact, because their admiration for him was based on hype and all that, and not on fact. Similar to Trump, we are ill-equipped to use the clear fact that he's failing to take them away. Like, first of all, they have a get out of having to have any critical thought, whatever, free card. When I point out, like I put up all those things about him, like knee-jerk firing a bunch of people who criticize him, and what they'll say is, "Why are you obsessed with him?" So like, if they think he's done something good, then they'll talk about it because it's amazing. Anything bad, they don't have to consider it. You're obsessed. They don't need to rethink the world. And they will interpret everything. Like when he said that he was going to be restricting your tweets unless you pay. That's one of the new proposed policies or whatever. I was on a Reddit thread. Tons of people were like, "Yeah, no, I think that's actually good. I think like too many people give too many thoughts, but you love him because of the free speech thing. And now you switched over to only the rich should be able to say whatever they want." Like they feel perfectly comfortable taking that trip. It's madness.
It's just like a guy that's in a room with a bunch of Star Wars figurines and is, no offense, and has like completely pegged his entire identity to this. And then like Phantom Menace comes out. And it's like, what? But like Phantom Menace come out and he's like, no, it's good because my identity is this. Cool. Am I gonna have to go find some other person to toady? I can't. I've already bought too many Elon Musk figurines.
I know.
And I think the only way to really reveal it is to take like their isms and point them at Musk and just be like, A people hire A people and B people hire C people. Well, firing your lead engineer because he pointed out that you have a substandard performance, that is B people hiring C people. That's not A people hiring A people.
You're talking about the like strong men create good times create weak men create hard times create strong men. We should make that.
It's weird that you memorize
photos
that.
of Elon Musk because I see it all the time on Twitter. Anyway, also it's not that difficult to map out the ridiculous thoughts. Anyway, get off my back. You've already attacked me on Star Wars. Now you're attacking me on memorizing memes. But I do want to talk about memes though, Brett, because and I understand this is a weird thing to start off the show with, but I want to have some fun. So I had to watch something that hurt my heart to see. And so like with The Ring, I'm now gonna make you watch it so the curse turns to you. Let's jump into this video whenever you're ready.
Belong to the internet.
Yeah, exactly. It's the whole point of a meme.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And typically you'll like the meme too that you'll post, and so people know where it's coming from.
Memes belong to the people.
Yeah.
that's you create your own memes though, don't you?
I saw it create some memes.
Your meme game is strong.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh God, no, I don't want to believe that that's real. Please tell me that deep fakes are more advanced than I thought at this point, and someone made that whole cloth. Tell me that he did not spend time in a room, set up a camera, by the way. Why was that camera running? And then have 3 young engineers defending him from accusations from the people he robs of memes, by the way, that he just takes them, doesn't credit them, and then tries to present this idea that he makes literally any of this. Yes, memes are meant to be shared, but we can also point out that when you are trying to craft from whole cloth the idea that you are a funny person, and by the way, that many of the memes you steal are terrible, people can criticize you. To then surround himself by these engineers that have to defend him, saying, well, at least you like it, or don't you make some? Your meme game is strong. I get that if they don't say that, they'll be fired. So they're not the villains here at the end of the day. They could lose their entire careers if they don't, feed him grapes and fan him with a palm frond or whatever. But Brett, that is just no way to live as a 50-whatever-year-old man.
Oh, it is every way to live, John. That is the dream I have.
That's your dream?
Like, that sounds awesome to do, but only if you're also successful in doing the job. That's like, ask any football fan. It's like, I want Aaron Rodgers to be the best because he's my quarterback. And in being the best, he's paid a bunch of money. What you don't want is this guy to be paid a bunch of money to suck it up on the field, to be horrible. That's when you get mad. And that's where Elon Musk is. He's this guy who has a bunch of money and a bunch of clout, and then he goes and lays turds on the 50-yard line every day. And worse, he gathers the offensive and defensive coordinator to point at the turd on the center of the field and say, tell me it's beautiful and that it doesn't stink.
Brett, your turd game is strong.
Man, your turd game. And he's like, he's stealing other people's turds. He's like scooping it.
It's not even his.
Look at what I did.
Didn't even poop. At the end of the day.
I apologize for taking us down this road.
Sometimes you flush their toilet when you take their poop. I mean, you do that.
Right, it's insane statements like this. And you asked a question earlier that's like, when I point this stuff out, they ask, why are you obsessed with Elon Musk? First of all, calmer than you are, dude. Calmer than you are. Like, I am not obsessed. The reason I point it out is because it's so goddamn hilarious.
It is
like
very, very funny.
And how insanely hard, and these folks contort themselves into these twister positions so that they support Elon Musk, who's just sitting on their face. Like, it is hilarious. The thank you, sir, may I have another mentality of Elon stands is so amazing and delicious. And honestly, at this point in the arc, when I open my phone, I will do the For You page because the For You page is hilarious and full of pathetic Lonnie stands like this.
I avoid it, but I respect your desire to be on it or whatever. Yeah. Are we upset? Like, you're more calm. I don't even care if I am or not. Again, it isn't at the end of the day really about him. It's similar to the fight against people like Donald Trump. It is fighting against the modern day myth making that upholds rich mediocrity. I believe that is holding back our society, and we need to fight it by taking down their avatars. It's like Shadow of the Colossus, but it's just a bunch of really dim-witted rich people wandering through the country, ruining things. And it's our obligation to climb up their back and take them down, metaphorically. Yeah. Anyway, I would make a meme out of that, but I'm worried that Elon Musk would steal it. Okay, we're gonna take a short break, Brett. That's good. Yes, we're gonna take a short break. We come back, lots more to get to, including more puppy-related crime after this.
Puppy, woof.
Okay. Anyway, everyone, let's see what's going on there. Lynn says, Brett, your beard game is strong. I think you just got burned. I like it. Very stable photographer says, Brett kind of has a 2 days drunk, no shave Steve Bannon. Let's do a podcast beer. Wait a second. Okay, what do they call the person in a race who's currently? Is that the pole position? Is that what that is? I don't watch races.
The first is a person who at the beginning of it has earned the right to be first.
Okay, well right now I'm gonna give people a little bit of time, but a very stable photographer is in the pole position.
Where you are, I think it might be where you start where you're slotted.
I think you're probably right. Yes. Ian seems confused. Says yes, Hot Mike Friday is back. I don't know what
that's weird
reference to.
Nasty
Habit says John is going to shave, and I just grew a goatee for the first time in decades. There needs to be balance in the universe. Okay, the more you grow, the more I'll shave.
So when I first did this to start my trek toward being, and thanks for noticing that I did shave, by the way. I went like this, and so it was just like a thick beard, like this like across my lip and up my sideburns. It was amazing.
You could have done that for a day. Okay, let's see. Tattered Remnant says, Brett's beard reminds me of my kid when he got into the chocolate powder. That's pretty good.
I look like Red Skelton when he would do the like, I don't know. Or I honestly think I look worse than Ben Shapiro when he tries to grow a beard.
Oh my God. We should have a poll of which is worse. You, him, or Ted Cruz.
Or Don Jr. Don Jr.'s is insane.
Yeah. Oh. It's fine. Not everyone can grow a beard. It's totally cool.
I'm just happy to be in the company of those geniuses.
Exactly. Jacob the Laser Dragon sent you a super chat saying, "Can I get a birthday shout? I just turned 40 today. John, you're the best. Brett, you're also the best." I feel so bad hitting 40. That is such a terrible mark to hit. It's all downhill. What you want to be is low 30s like me, still in the prime, just not physically or mentally or emotionally or spiritually. Happy birthday, Jacob. Anyway, Jacob Hawkins says, "What's wrong with Brett's face? It's different and change scares me."
You're right. That is the right way to be right there.
Billy Shee Taylor says, "Brett woke up and found hair where there was no hair before."
I'm losing hair where I want hair. I'm growing hair where there shouldn't be any hair. I found 4 big fat ones on my back. I'm starting to look like a fly.
Let the great migration begin.
It's from cities.
Yes, Late Bloomer over on Twitch has gifted 5 subscriptions. Thank you, Late Bloomer. Two Papers Doll Gaming gave 1 as well. Thank you so much. John's Retired Barber gifted 1. Is that a reference to me? Because I don't cut my hair anymore. That took a lot of planning. Well, thank you for that. Anyway, Animal Mother says Brett has purple hair. It does kind of look like you have purple hair right now.
Listen, Ashley can attest. Before the show started, normally it chooses a side of the aisle, but it just was straight up. So I was just like a dark area with points.
I get that reference. Let's see, Icy Vamp, subscribe for the 24th month. Thank you for that. Lizzie Neppen for 24 as well. What were we up to 24 months ago? But anyway, thank you. Okay, so you know what? I'm gonna call it for today. I'm liking it with a very stable photographer, Blue Apron gift card for you. Brett kind of has a 2 days drunk, no shave, Steve Bannon, let's do a podcast beard. I like it. So send an email to rewards@tyt.com, send your first and last name, as well as a very stable photographer, and they'll get you hooked up with that gift card. Thank you everyone for sending in messages. We have a lot more to get to, but first, more news. Brett, you have been corrected to brownish area with points, but I believe you were adapting.
No, I couldn't remember what it was because I just know she has like black hair and it's an Arrested Development reference to Lucille 2 where Buster sees her without his glasses on. She's like, she's a brownish area.
There is no, someday we'll have a trivia off and I don't think anyone can beat Brooke when it comes to Arrested Development trivia. Anyway, with that said, we've got more news to get to. Let's start off with this.
I was all in on this. I had my heart and soul on this. This isn't about power. This is about getting stuff done. Having somebody like me come and represent other people who are just like me, simple-minded folks who come from absolutely nothing and have a voice in Congress. That's why when Mitt Romney told me I didn't belong here, this isn't the first or will it be the last time that somebody has told me I didn't belong, and I fought to stay.
Well, I agree with you there. I think there's going to be more accusations that you don't belong there. You simple-minded fool, you. He started from nothing and then rose all the way to heights of becoming a master middle guard on the Brook volleyball team and a savior of dogs with cancer around the country. Yes, he started from nothing and he became nothing really, but technically, briefly, a congressman. In any event, that was an interview that George Santos was having with Newsmax, and there are more serious concerns having to do especially with lingering questions about where the hell all of his money came from in his actual run for Congress. Here is his answer to that.
I would love it if you could be a bit more specific, though. You're kind of talking a little bit vaguely. For these loans, there's collateral. There are things that, in the past, you've said, okay, it didn't come from Russia, it didn't come from China. You say legitimately. That's a lot of money. It didn't appear that you had jobs that would provide that kind of income where you can make these kinds of loans. So I would love it if you could be a bit more specific because these are real sizable figures.
Of course, Greg, Devolder Organizations was founded in 2001 when I stepped away from my previous employment, and I decided to go on my own to do exactly what I've did for other companies for years, which is capital introduction, relationship management of high net worth individuals.
Okay, he did rattle off a bunch of buzzwords in quick succession. There are some issues, as many people have pointed out. If he had actually started that company in 2001, he would have been 13. So I guess the other employment would have been a lemonade stand. And then he started a venture capital fund or something. I assume he means 2021, that is when it was actually made. The issue is that he can just talk vaguely about representing capital, big money, blah, blah. There is no evidence of years of growing success in this field. 2 years, 3 years now ago, he had like $50,000 to his name. It is not impossible that in the next year and a half, he generated so many millions of dollars that he could afford to give $700,000 to his own campaign. But if that is the case, there would be evidence of that. And thus far, there is none. And I love, by the way, that in this case, George Santos is so toxic that even Newsmax feels like they can ask, for the first time ever, pointed, difficult questions to a Republican. I don't know what the name of that chucklehead was, and I'm sure everything else he's ever said in his life is terrible, but those were good questions to George Santos. Brett, what do you think?
Right, the fact that they're starting to call him out, like they're liars themselves, like that's their whole thing, is they just take whatever anyone on the right says that seems to get like engagements and retweets from morons, and they say it. And they're like, sorry, we're liars, but you're bad. That's like, you know, those parts of town where they're like, we are Candy Cane Lane, and we design our houses to be at Christmas time the most ornately lighted houses in the neighborhood. And he's like, all right, I'm with you. I'll be at home. I like to decorate. And it's as if Candy Cane Lane was like, dude, scale it back a bit. It is too much. What you put on your house is way too much. The guy, I understand it. There's a part of when I say this is America, Jack, is like, it's, you know, part of it is fake it till you make it, but you're a congressman now, so you've made it. Can you please just tell us every lie? Just out with it. It's gonna be fun. People are gonna actually like you more. We're at that point in the arc where it's no longer like he's already surpassed the, you know, I was in the Donald Trump make it crazy as possible. He overshot that. And the only thing that America really likes more than that is someone who really puts their hat in their hand and comes at you with a real apology that makes sense. But I fear that he's too much of an absolute pathological, like clinically pathological liar that he can't even wrap his mind around what he's did in any conscious way.
Yeah, no, I mean, you see in his eyes, there's like no emotion there. Like there is something obviously deeply psychologically wrong with him that he believes that, like, I don't know if he has a different view of what is the truth and what is a lie, or he cannot conceive of why it would be bad to lie to people because he doesn't see them as people. I don't think he sees lies or other people the same way that we do. I don't know what his arc is eventually going to be, if it's going to be, you know, coming clean like Brett says, or if someday he's going to compete on The Masked Singer and they're going to unveil him at the end, and then there's going to be an expose that it actually wasn't him singing the whole time. I don't know what's going to happen to him, but I would really prefer it to not be in elected office, especially because there are more allegations of criminality coming out. You didn't think it was possible. We're weeks and weeks into this. More stuff is still being uncovered. According to Politico, George Santos was charged with theft by deception back in 2017 in Pennsylvania's Amish country after a series of bad checks totaling $15,125 were written in his name to dog breeders in the area. So someone was ripping off possibly Amish dog breeders to get free dogs. We don't know that they were definitely Amish. It was Amish country, which is not the same thing. But someone was doing it. Now, who is it? So we get some details from this Politico account. Attorney Tiffany Bogosian, who was a middle school classmate of Santos and reconnected with him in 2020, told Politico that the then future congressman told her the checkbook had gone missing in 2017 and blamed someone he knew for its disappearance. And she believed him, like defended him. He said that he had canceled the checkbook with TD Bank as soon as he had noticed it was gone. And Tiffany Bogosian said that he was clearly a victim of fraud. She was his friend a long time ago, defender. However, She told Politico she now doesn't believe her former classmate's claim after he tried to get one of her personal injury clients to invest with a Florida firm that the Securities and Exchange Commission later said was a Ponzi scheme. So she even had his back after the Amish dog fraud. But now she's like, wait, he totally tried to con one of my people. What is with this guy? And by the way, it is entirely possible that someone stole the checkbook and that he didn't actually do it. But wasn't it check fraud that he did down in Brazil? And it has to do with dogs. His whole charity is all about dogs. Like there are too many signs pointing to he tried to rip off the Amish for puppies. What do you think, Brad?
Believe George. I'm tired of this guy getting a raw deal. He is not a fraudster. It's so easy. It's such the easy narrative to believe that yes, just because he is at the heart of all of these lies in multiple places and all of them stink the exact same way, it's easy to just get suckered into that as a narrative and believe it's true. But what if he's just that unlucky? What if he's always just been in the wrong place at the wrong time? This is America. He should be allowed to defend himself in a court of law, hooked up to a lie detector test. I need to see it. I need it streamed live on Twitch. We'll provide the show. George Santos, come on down. You're the next contestant on DYT wants to hook you up to a lie detector. Because this guy's
start a show where
probably pass it.
No politician would go on a show where they were hooked up to a lie detector, but that would be pretty exciting. We should set that up. Someone's gonna steal it with a much bigger audience. Damn it. Anyway, yeah, look, I like the idea that throughout his life he's been in the wrong place at the wrong time. The only thing I can say with certainty is that right now he's very much in the wrong place. He should not be in Congress. Okay, with that said, we've got some important stuff to jump to, so why don't we do that now? Prominent figures on the right and on whatever the Democratic Party is right now have very different priorities when it comes to education. And as we cruise towards another presidential election, it's important for you to understand how the choice of one side or the other could influence the future outcomes for your children. Take people like Ron DeSantis, who could be the next president. He's focusing on things like erasing Black history from Florida schools, and I assume that he would probably be interested in doing that nationwide. There's no end to the different books that they want to ban, scholars who they want to hide, Black African American scholars, LGBTQ scholars, all of that. Also, he's doing things like seeking transgender university students' healthcare information. There was the whole thing with trying to get the teen athletes' menstruation information, which thankfully, because of the public outcry, they actually backed off of that for now. So victory to those who fought against that. And it's not just him. He's an easy focus and he is very prominent, but many red states have passed legislation to prevent trans youth from participating in school sports, including the 18 that you can see on this map. This is a nationwide thing, a focus of the right. Now, on the other hand, you have Joe Biden, who is not going to be some sort of massive culture warrior on the other side or anything like that. But he does have some things that him and his administration are working on, particularly a long-awaited ruling that changes Title IX. This should have happened like a year and a half ago, but here's what they want to do. It directs how federally funded schools and colleges handle sex and gender discrimination. It's going to become public in May, and it's unclear when it would actually take effect. So you are still going to have to wait, and it could eventually be overruled, or overridden by a future president. In any event, he pledged to change it during his presidential campaign. And for the last 5 months, the Education Department has been reviewing more than 238,000 public comments on the proposal, and I'm sure they are very, very rational. Here is what is actually apparently going to be proposed to change in the near future. For the first time, it would include protections for transgender and non-binary students. It would expand the definition of sexual harassment, decreasing the threshold for what schools are required to investigate, because in many cases, they can hide behind the fact that what is being alleged doesn't rise to the very stringent requirements that are currently in Title IX. It would add protections for pregnant and parenting students, acts a requirement for live hearings in college and university cases involving sexual misconduct, which some individuals might not want to participate in because it's live in that fashion, and require schools to use a preponderance of evidence standard instead of a clear and convincing evidence standard in determining the outcome of most sexual assault cases, a change which advocates believe would reduce how often what is alleged by victims to be completely unjust outcomes would happen. So I assume that you're going to be hearing much more about this, not only when it comes out, but when the right fearmongers around it for literally months on end. But Brett, what do you think about some of these changes that are being proposed?
Listen, I'm looking at all the things he did, and they seem pretty terrible that Ron DeSantis did. I want to start there. I just think, yes, he has delivered for Floridians, but usually it seems like, according to new evidence, he's delivering Boone's Farm for Florida teenagers. And then also with these transgender laws that he seems to be like the bannerman for, or like the lead, the guy the flag guy. It seems like he really wants to see kids' genitals before they go swimming, which is weird. I think that's a hard one to say. And until that evidence came forward, that it seems like, and since he just says stuff and now it becomes the law, I'm going to, or now becomes true for his viewers because they hate someone. I hate Ron DeSantis. I'm going to say things that I believe to be true as though they are true, as though they are actually happening, because that seems to be his standard. So it looks like, by that logic, Ron DeSantis, even though he's from the Republicans who say they're anti-grooming, has been grooming teenagers, and they're pedophiles who want to see kids' junk before they get in the pool. And I think that is more disturbing than going to a swim meet for K through 10-year-olds and just being like, everybody race, I don't care, everyone's getting a ribbon. So that's it. With the Title IX stuff, that's very nuanced, and I'm not going to be an expert on what's better or worse a process for finding out exactly what happened in a sexual harassment case. I don't feel like the need for there to be, like, if there is a live hearing or not, like, you're supposed to be able to face your accuser and all of that stuff, and those are central tenets of the legal system. But do you need to face them in person or not? Do you want justice or not? I think those are things that I would want to see some kind of, are there those kinds of precedents in legal proceedings that protect people, and what are the outcomes? What are the outcomes seem to be? My gut is, I don't think everyone needs to be in a room together situation is necessary for us to find out what happened. But I think it's bad. It looks bad politically for Republicans and that whole group to say, you know what? We don't want to make it as easy as possible for justice to be served.
Yeah, under the banner, to continue your metaphor, of save the children, we want it to be effectively impossible to prove sexual assault. Like it is so bizarre that they are so hyper focused on fictional, made up, whatever, grooming or whatever amongst second graders. But then once you get to college, they could not care less about what happens to you and whether, if something happens to you, there's any justice. It's amazing how the standard changes. It's political opportunism. That's what it is. And by the way, there might be some follow-up questions about some of the changes that we've talked about and said, well, what about, like you had showed in the map, all that focus on the athletes, trans athletes? This does not cover that. They say that they're going to have a separate rule on the topic of transgender and non-binary student participation on certain sports. They're not saying exactly when that's going to come. It took like a year and a half for them to, no, actually more than that, like slightly more than 2 years to finally make good on their campaign promises to change Title IX to begin with. So if this is coming later, maybe by the end of his first term, we'll see. Maybe in time for a President Trump to replace, we'll have to see. Okay, with that said, we're gonna take our second break, but don't go anywhere. There's way more where that came from. Okay, Brett, let's see. Adrian says Brett shaved and is giving Ben Shapiro beard vibes. I think it looks perfectly natural on you.
Only if I hold my, hang on, let me get my face to where it needs to be.
Jesus. Let's see. Jaded Century says John's hair needs to go to Brett's face. We need a transplant. Okay. Mickey C. No, Mickey C. The ageism was a joke aimed at myself. I wasn't being serious. I was mocking the fact that I just turned 40. Please understand. I wasn't actually mocking a viewer for turning 40. I was joking about myself because my birthday was a week ago.
John's 40 is what we're trying to say.
The important takeaway is that John's 40 and that's Brett's actual face and hair right now, okay?
At 41.
Those are the important thing. At 41, okay.
Almost 41.
As long as it's a number higher. As long as it's a number higher.
Let me get my chin forward. Okay, cool. Anyway. Go ahead.
Oh my God. Okay,
What do the
Matt
rest of the show
Sella
says?
gifted 10 memberships on YouTube. Thank you for that, much appreciated. A Florida Dragon gifted 5 as well. Laurel Dragon gifted 5. I don't know what's in the air or water, though bearing in mind it's America, so probably toxins. But it is apparently leading to a lot of gifting. So thank you for that, much appreciated. Smiling Dragon's been here for 25 months on YouTube, says, yo Brett, could you cut your beard any shorter? Sending my condolences. I think it looks good. Megan Satanas, member for 24 months, says, George Santos got his money as a teacher at Hogwarts. Slytherin, of course. He'll claim it at some point. May Money into Building, hey May Money, says, the hair on Brett's face looks fine. The hair on his head, on the other hand, has a series of unfortunate events Count Olaf vibe. I've never seen that, so I don't know that reference. What's up, John Iadarola? This fat Friday blunt. Happy Fry High Day. Jeez, busy in the morning.
It really does.
Anyway, I don't know Count Olaf. I'll have to look that up. Seven Dust, member for 1 month, says possible to limit gifts to not yet members. I assume it only does the gifts to non-members.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. I don't think it can gift to somebody that already has it. Christina Bateman Garvis, member for 22 months, says, who is this impersonating Brett? Was real Brett unavailable, possibly due to beauty routine issues? People want to know.
Dude,
he's still getting ready.
When I did this and I looked down, and there looked like there was a rat in the sink.
How long was your facial hair before?
Do you want me to grab the hair?
No, I don't want you to show me a handful of hair. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, you kind of do. I'll be right
go
back.
grab it if you want. Okay, anyway. Billy Shea Taylor in the super chat says, holy crap, what happened to Brett's face? Well, we're about to find out what happened, actually. River Rose gifted 5 memberships. The toxins are spreading, everyone. Andy Shimkiss, member for 2 months, says, Brett looks like one of those sad clowns. He just needs the bowler hat. Hey, I know the imagery you're invoking, but that's mean. Anyway, oh God, what does he have? Tell me it's gone already. Okay, I thought you were gonna come with like, he dropped it all over himself. He's now covered with hair. Anyway, Alembican sent in a super chat saying, hey guys, happy Friday. Brett, your beard makes you look a bit like a political cartoon. I dig it.
Thank you, I'll take it. I need to gently walk over to the trash can and just like push
Professor
it over.
Dragon,
30 seconds.
Chat. Yeah, that's fine. You can stay for longer, actually. Kat Bland says in super chat, joining late, but looking at Brett, all he needs to do is shave his head and he'll look like an emaciated Joe Rogan. JK, I love you both. Hope you have a great weekend. Jeez, people getting brutal. Stress Snap says, I'll take that Arrested Development trivia challenge. No fear. Oh, a challenger has entered the arena. Brooke better watch out.
Wait, she just walked over here to check, so we'll fill in later.
Okay, in the chat I see, and Twitch, a Trollpy says, OMG, is that George Santos posing as Brett?
Wait, what was the thing that Brooke has a challenger for?
For the Arrested Development trivia.
Who was it?
I just got rid, hold.
There was a challenger for Arrested Development. Who was it?
Stress Snaps did it.
Stress Snaps.
So go and deal with that challenger. They're trying to replace you as Pirate King, actually, and there is a process for that. It involves
Melawan Raja.
Yep, it was. Okay, with that said, we've got important news to get to. So, and actually more time for this block than I think we've ever had on a Friday. So let's all stretch out and talk about some of the worst news I've heard in a very long time. Mississippi's thoroughly Republican-controlled House voted earlier this week to set up a new system for choosing now what will be unelected leaders and judges in Jackson. Why would they want to do this? Well, Mississippi is one kind of thing and Jackson is a different type of thing. We're gonna read some numbers to see if you can figure out why they might want to have more control over it. Jackson, the city, is 82.5% Black or African American, whereas Mississippi overall is 59% white. Now, the demographics and political identity are not a one-to-one thing, but we know that generally big cities in conservative rural areas tend to be more Democratic. They don't necessarily vote the way that the rest of the city does. You see this in other places, including Atlanta, in Georgia, and all that. Now, wouldn't it be nice if you controlled the state, but couldn't or didn't want to appeal to the voters in a particular city to just choose their leaders for them instead? That would be convenient. It wouldn't be democratic, but it would be convenient. So here's what they want to do. The proposal is HB 1020. It's been put forth by GOP backers as a measure to increase public safety and reduce backlogs in the courts. But local leaders have argued the measure is a power grab from the state's largely conservative white legislature against the majority black population of Jackson. Representative Ed Blackman, a Democrat, says only in Mississippi would we have a bill like this, where we say solving the problem requires removing the vote from black people. I noticed that this bill does not address part of the problem, which is lack of funding at that crime lab, one of the parts that they talk about in the bill. You're blaming Jackson because they can't process their cases fast enough because the crime lab is not operating at capacity because we don't give them the money. He added that the measure, which would allow state officials to appoint judges and prosecutors instead of the usual local process of electing them, wouldn't do anything to reduce crime, which makes sense. Unless you're making the case that for some reason, the voters elect judges and prosecutors that work slower than you would, it seems like you're almost intentionally not trying to solve the problem. But this is a great solution to ongoing problems from the point of view of the right. They had to do a lot of work over many decades to strip voting places out of these cities, to gerrymander and split up districts and all that. It's a long, gradual process to erode someone's political power. Just taking it entirely away and saying you don't get to choose your leaders anymore, we'll choose them for you. Oh, and we're also not going to provide any funding to actually speed up the process of adjudicating cases and things like that. It seems, Brett, almost too brazen, but I think it's an ambitious experiment. What do you think?
No. Sometimes the obvious answer is just too easy, John. Funding, like if what they say of the problem can be fixed by funding the crime lab to speed things up, that's too easy. It just makes sense, and that's why we shouldn't ever do it. This is insane. They say that democracy is bad. Now, that is directly related to there's a lot of lies told about critical race theory. There's a lot of lies told about the pointing out structural racism. This is structural racism. They are changing the structure of the society, really, so that a group that is a minority in a specific location, the whites, can have power over the majority in that situation, in that area. It is insanely brazen, but the problem is that in these states, typically what happens is this would be ruled unconstitutional at normally a state level before it gets to the national level. But in these states, they have gerrymandered the districts so much that they are able to rewrite the state constitution to make it a crazy town. And in that crazy town, they are doing another cliche, which is allowing the politicians to pick the voters. But in this case, they're not even picking the voters, they're picking themselves instead of letting the people choose the politicians.
Yeah, 100%. I don't see how this could possibly stand, except that the state Supreme Court will allow it, and God only knows what will happen with the SCOTUS. SCOTUS has made a couple of decisions over the past few years that were not exactly what I would have predicted. Generally, in areas where a decision could specifically protect Trump, they haven't been as defensive of him as you would have predicted. But when it comes to the right-wing social culture war stuff, they're pretty much who you'd expect them to be. And here's the thing: if they just do this in Mississippi, that is bad enough. It is, as they are pointing out. I believe the mayor said they're looking to colonize Jackson. They're trying to put their military force over Jackson, try to dictate who has province over Jack, while they simultaneously introduce a bill at how they can remove elected officials in Jackson. It reminds me of colonial power where they dictate who is our leadership. Totally right to say that. But you don't think that the rest of the Republicans around the country are looking at this and thinking, man, that would be really convenient in Atlanta. And honestly, Austin, pretty liberal for Texas, so it would be great if we could choose their local leaders as well. And right now their claim is that this will expedite cases and stuff. But they're gonna start to throw in other stuff. We have concerns about how elections have typically been run there. And so, for concerns over electoral fraud and all that, we're just gonna choose their mayor from now on. Maybe it won't go that far. Maybe it'll just be a horrendous anti-democratic thing that they're doing to the good people of Mississippi and of Jackson. But this is the sort of thing that Alec could very well run with. And so I would be worried about this. If you live in a traditionally red state that has areas that are much more democratic, especially if they're majority minority, then you should definitely have this on your radar.
Right, and the answer to your question, or the next step, is they'll take it as far as they can. That's it. That's the answer to all of this. They're taking it as far as they can. This kind of movement took itself into the halls of Congress to overthrow a democratic election. If you're asking, and it's so ironic that it's so contemptible and horrible that these folks typically are the ones who say, we got to protect ourselves with these rifles against the tyrannies of government. They're the ones who are perpetrating the tyrannies of government. They are going in and choosing leaders for areas they don't like. And they don't like them because they're picking their own leaders? It's insane. And they're starving them in another way. They're cutting off funding to a crime lab.
Well, and to theoretically justify the decision that they're making. Like, don't help them out. Don't help them in the wake of disasters. Don't help them in the wake of the admittedly high level of crime there. And then use the chaos or whatever the situation that you've helped to encourage to take away the remaining rights of the people in that area. Okay, we're gonna move on to our last story in just a second. I want to read a couple of comments. StrayX says in a super chat, if they put in people that ignore crime, they have less crime. Come on, John, we know how they work. Yeah, that's how it'll work. HA says, hello, chaps. That was polite, I like that. Hello, chaps, to you as well. Patrick says, Amish dog breeders typically run horrible puppy mills where dogs are mistreated. So that would be a case of a bad person screwing other bad people. And by the way, Annie Hudson similarly says, now I'm conflicted because Amish dog breeders are pretty much puppy mills, which are awful places. They may or may not deserve to be ripped off. Look, I don't like puppy mills any more than the next person, but I also don't think that just because you have a bad business, crimes are justified against you necessarily in this particular case. How about they're both wrong? The puppy mill should be shut down and George Santos should be banished from Congress.
I love that weird thing where not everybody in the chat, but there's this instinct in us all to be like, well, someone's the good guy and someone's the bad guy. It's like, no, everyone in the story can be horrible. And is it weird to anyone else that like the Amish are like, so cash your charge? Like they do that
in this case, but yeah,
they'll be the Amish. They'll be like riding their horse and buggy, but then they'll be on their cell phone because that is one of the not all, but
I'm sure there's explanations. I don't.
The explanation is anything that allows that doesn't that if it's just used for business, it's okay.
Okay, well that's a way. That's a way. Anyway, it's not my way, but it's a way. Okay, with that said, let's jump into one more story. Oh, there's so much good stuff in this. We only have 4 minutes. Okay, let's do it. I feel like I've said this so many times over the past couple of weeks, but I really didn't think that the investigation into the killing of Tyre Nichols could get any worse. Turns out that it can be, and you don't even have to go that far back in time before the actual beating to find more terrible signs of what was going on inside of the Memphis PD. Apparently, some of the exact same cops who were involved in the murder of Tyre Nichols allegedly beat a Black Army veteran 3 days earlier. This is according to a new lawsuit that's been filed for $5 million. Montarius Harris was with his cousin back on January 4th when he was, quote, suddenly swarmed by a large group of assailants wearing black ski masks, dressed in black clothing, brandishing guns, other weapons, hurling expletives, and making threats to end his life if he didn't exit his car. You can actually see a photo of the aftermath of the beating. He says that he thought it was a carjacking initially. And the reason he thought it was a carjacking is because how would you think anything other than that? People with no identification, dressed all in black, waving guns and ordering you to get out of your car sounds exactly like a carjacking. Well, it went really terribly, as you would expect, consistent with the beating visited upon Mr. Nichols, says the case. The Scorpion unit exacted a swift, violent, and continuous physical assault on Mr. Harris that included punching, stomping, and dragging him across concrete. Fortunately, there were people in a nearby apartment complex that came out, and they are speculating in the lawsuit that if not for that, God only knows how much worse the attack could have been. It's hard to say really though, because the cops, with Tyre Nichols, they were being filmed. It didn't seem to stop them, so God only knows. Maybe witnesses wouldn't have affected. We'll never know. In any event, it ended with Harris bleeding from his head, left eye swollen shut, great difficulty walking because his right leg was swollen and severely bruised, and his left leg was gashed. He's now facing a number of different charges, which the case asserts are false. We can get into that in a little bit, but Brett, what do you think about this?
I think it's horrible, and I think it should be further investigated, and I think there should be swift action, and these are things that seem quite obvious. Like, how does it get to this point? You have to look into that. I mean, when they have the Scorpion unit there, calling itself the Scorpion Unit, and you're like, they didn't call it the like. They didn't even like go through the trouble of trying to name it like the Heart Unit, where it's like helping each other achieve rational togetherness. Like there's none of, they don't do that. They called it the Scorpion Unit, and they go out and they essentially carjack people because they can. And it's that kind of power that like, it's bad when you turn on your siren so you can make it through a red light. I mean, these guys are taking people out of their cars and beating them half to death, and in this case of Tyree Nichols, to death.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, it's not Shield, it's not Guardian Unit, it's not Bastion Unit, it's Scorpion Unit. You know, that defensive servant animal, the mighty Scorpion.
Right.
Anyway, yeah.
With like, it doesn't just have claws; it has a stinger tail. Like its hands are like.
Exactly. I don't know what's gonna end up happening with this case. We're gonna try to keep up with it. Like imagine knowing, like being friends or family with Montarius Harris and knowing that the person, like that it could have easily gone that bad. Those same people would go on just 3 days later to commit a fatal beating. And also to think you're one of those cops, when you go up on Tyree Nichols, you know what you just did 3 days ago, and you're already ready to do it even worse, to go way beyond even the most deranged idea of what you need to do to subdue Tyree Nichols. Like you were not satisfied with the blood that you exacted 3 days earlier. You needed more. Anyway, it's still being investigated. We'll see what happens. With that said, that's all the time we have for the first hour. Thank you everyone watching on linear platforms, listening on the podcast. Great to have you here. Please rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts if you don't mind. It really helps. For those on Twitch, YouTube, all the other platforms, there's a lot more, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Aftermath, everybody. I'm John Iadarola. Brett is Brett. Brett, how's it going?
I'm fine. I had oatmeal this morning. It was fine. Have oatmeal.
You hosted, as you always do, Happy Half Hour on Wednesday. And I know your bracket was the best part of a Super Bowl party. I never actually heard what ended up winning.
Well, I forget. So let me open it right now.
It was 2 days ago.
John, I was more drunk.
Okay, well that's true.
Do you want to know what won?
While you look that up.
No, it was the finalists were The Game, Fun Little Games, Wearing Outfits, Burgers, Hot Dogs, Wings, My Special Appetizer that I like to bring, potatoes with potato chips and dip, chips and salsa or nachos, the ads, Getting Crunk or Gambling, and the winner, as should come as no surprise to anyone,
the game,
Getting Crunk.
Just generalized getting crunk. Okay.
Just getting drunk on a Sunday while eating all that stuff.
I do like it.
It beat Wings in the finals.
Okay, although you could combine those two things. Okay, let's see. Penny Rudder sent in a super chat letting us know that Mike Pence's house is being searched by the FBI. That's good. We'll see if anything comes of it. Thank you. Analytical Dragon says, seeing new George Santos headlines is like playing bingo with random Scrabble words. It's always a wild ride. 100%.
It's so good. I need a noun. Amish. Amish is an adjective, but it's good. Here we go. I'm adding it.
Okay. Stress Snaps became a tier 1 member. Thank you, Stress Snaps. Federnadian Dragon, member for 15 months, says currently playing taps for Brett's beard. Happy late birthday, John. Turned 31 on Monday myself. I'm down for Arrested Development trivia. Well, maybe we can find some sort of Jackbox Games Arrested Development focused thing. Bernie the Kiwi Dragon gifted 10 damage for memberships. That is a lot of memberships being gifted out there in the audience. Thank you so much, everyone. Jennifer, member for 25 months, says, yeah, I get to watch live on a day off. That's awesome. And Reiki Dragon, member for 21 months, says Santos has lied so much he actually believes what he's saying 100%. He can't come clean because he totally has drunk his own Kool-Aid. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know how much I want to get into his head. In any event, we've got news to get to, so why don't we jump into this? I was watching my Roku, and an ad came up. It was a Fox Nation ad, and they said that a legendary comedian was finally returning. And they showed them from behind. It was very hard to tell who it was. It was just sort of like a brown spot with some spikes. And then I heard the voice, and I knew instantly that annoying voice. I knew who it was, and here it is. Roseanne Barr's Cancel This show is coming to Fox Nation on February 13th. Cancel This, she named it because I guess Triggered was finally taken enough that they didn't call it Triggered again. It's gonna debut on February 13th. It's gonna be Barr's first comedy special since Blonde and Bitchin' aired on HBO back in 2006. It was taped in front of a live audience at Houston's Cullen Theater. And the streaming service is gonna release a special called Who is Roseanne Barr in conjunction with the project. Definitely a confidence move when you have to have a documentary that explains who the person is. Anyway, here's the issue with that. There's multiple issues. So the first one is she is like, well, I'm not gonna say every right winger because almost every comedian also does this. Any criticism whatsoever, any business decision by a company that doesn't want to have its entire reputation be tanked by your horrendous comments, declaring herself to be canceled. Despite the fact that she has yet another special that's coming out. She's doing a special, but she is still the victim, still canceled. But you're not canceled, you have a special. Like lots of people don't have specials, you have a special. How are you the canceled one? She said, and I will remind you of the things in a bit, the absolutely horrendous things that she was saying that finally forced a business to end the reboot of Roseanne or whatever, that I'm sure would have made them a bunch of money. So I just love every time, Brett, it's the constant, anybody who disagrees with them, anyone who makes a rational decision to not support their comedy anymore isn't making their own decision like a human would, they're canceling them. What do you think?
The sense of entitlement that celebrities have, rich celebrities have, is not surprising, but it still surprises me. The fact that they have it, that sense of entitlement, like she's entitled to an audience. The whole reason you as a comedian get an audience is because the things you're saying make people laugh, make people feel good, sometimes make people think, but really just makes them laugh. And you try to get more of those people together by saying things that make people feel good, and your audience grows. She said things that didn't make people feel good, and her audience shrunk. And she's like, how dare they?
Yeah.
How dare people not love every second of it? because she forgot the club she worked in to make her way to the absolute pinnacle of comedianship in the late 80s and early 90s, having her own sitcom that was #1 for 1,000 years, which she did. Yeah. She just forgot where she came from. The other thing is this decision. So if you're a comedian, you very often say things in the room to lose the room. You're trying new material, they turn against you because you said it wrong. You're just dying out there, right? Most comedians try to get the room back. She's not. She's getting a new room.
Yeah.
Louis C.K. is trying to get the room back. Louis C.K. is doing specials where he's like, I screwed up. I'm a bad person. I watched his most recent special, So Sue Me, and he was really great just doing material to get the room back. That's an earnest attempt to get yourself back into good graces, not by complaining about how there are consequences to saying horrible stuff. And instead, he is like trying to do good material.
Yeah.
So people will be like, he's trying. Yeah, that's the difference between him and Roseanne Barr, and these weird moves by a lot of comedians who are like, well, I'll just Jim Brewer my way into the most toxic room. And so, and what's sad is like comedians know what kind of laugh they're getting, what kind of reaction they're getting. I've said on the show, you don't want the clapping where people are like, I agree with you. This is not voluntary. This is me. This is not involuntary. It's a voluntary action of clapping because you didn't make me laugh, but I want you to know I'm with you. You want the laughs that are just this involuntary, like that was hilarious. These folks are flocking to the claps, but they're not good claps. They're as bad as the clap. They're flocking to people who are like, yeah, you didn't make me feel good. You made me feel angry in the way I need to feel angry right now. So I'm with you, Roseanne.
Which is a thing. It doesn't feel like a comedy thing. It feels like a, I don't know.
It's like I mean, it's a way
thing.
I have friends. Yeah. I have friends like that laugh because it's the worst thing you've ever said. But there's a place for, but like that, the worst thing you've ever said is like when you're at like I've been at funerals where people are laughing because they need the release from the tragedy. There's a different like worst thing you ever said that people think is funny. It's like taboos and you break them and that's one way to get released, but like leaning into them just to be terrible because you're alone in a room together. That is a horrible thing that I don't think is funny. And I never really understand people who flock to that kind of humor.
Well, it feels different than comedy. I mean, you could your set could be 40 minutes of you reading Cards Against Humanity cards. I mean, I don't think that's the same thing as like a comedy set. In any event, it is a weird way to go through life as a person whose focus for decades has been comedy, thinking that if you say things that people like, you should become famous and rich and whatever. But if you say that things that people don't like, you should still be rich and famous. I kind of feel like you have to take both of those simultaneously. Like, if people are gonna flock to you and be fans, then they might also do the opposite of that. That's what has actually happened here.
And a lot of good comedians say things that people think they don't like, but reveal that they're kind of being crappy anyway. You know,
I get what you're saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, in any event, we're not gonna go through all the stuff that she said. I do think that it is interesting that after her like Valerie Jarrett, Planet of the Apes comments and stuff, right, like clearly racist stuff, she said incredibly misogynistic stuff. She just states that Chelsea Clinton married into the Soros family. It's not true, she didn't. So obviously playing into those stereotypes, and you know, she is, by the way, she's Jewish. But she's also said things that a lot of people interpret to be wildly anti-Semitic. She also, by the way, during Kanye West's downfall, said that she appreciated his anti-Semitic tweets. So again, like she can say that. She can have whatever opinion she wants. But it is just weird to have Fox saying what Ilhan Omar tweeted 3 years ago is so terrible that she should be barred from service on congressional committees. And that's not canceling. That's just necessary. But if you don't like what Roseanne said and you don't want to listen to her anymore, you've canceled her. When she likes Kanye West's anti-Semitism, it's such a weird. I really wish that they could be forced in some way to have a consistent position on what exactly canceling is, because it seems like they're perfectly fine with it in some cases. In any event, it is 10:10. I think that we have time.
Yeah,
so
do
what
it.
We're gonna do is, what's that?
Rihanna.
Okay, we're gonna do it. Let's jump into this.
Is the biggest challenge. That was the hardest part. deciding how to maximize 13 minutes, but also celebrate. That's what this show is going to be. It's going to be a celebration of my catalog in the best way that we could have put it together. And you only.
So that is Rihanna, obviously incredibly popular singer, talking about the upcoming big moments of the Super Bowl, as well as an album coming out. I was not aware of this because I don't really follow music, apologies, but it's been 4 years, for the live performances. It's been longer, 7 years since her last actual album. So obviously, if you're a fan of this, is an incredibly big time. You're very excited for that. She's been busy since then with all sorts of different business ventures, as well as writing music for things like the Black Panther Wakanda Forever soundtrack and all that. But her return, which has a lot of her fans very excited, was not universally appreciated. One person who apparently doesn't have a presidential campaign to focus on, Donald Trump, bleated, "Without her stylist, she'd be nothing. Bad everything and no talent." I will leave it to the fans to defend her on the talent stuff. She seems perfectly talented to me, and I'm assuming a lot of her style is probably also a talent of hers. But this is stupid and it's petty, but I kind of like this moment of Trump randomly attacking Rihanna, because it reminds me of, like, he's mad, or I should say Ronnie Jackson is mad because she posted this tweet that had F Donald Trump on it, and he thinks that that's like lacking character. How could she possibly do that? Ronnie Jackson, of course, like every Republican, spent an entire year thinking that "Let's Go Brandon" was the funniest thing they've ever heard, which is literally just F Joe Biden. Again, it's weird how when they do it, it's cool, but a woman of color does it and it's low class or whatever. But anyway, it just reminded me of classic Trump. Can we go to our last graphic 5? Back when he could not stop tweeting about things like Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson dating or breaking up or whatever, because like, this is what he should have been. He should have been a weird old rando on Twitter opining on stuff that has nothing to do with him. It shouldn't have been that he does that, then becomes president, and then goes back to doing it. Like, I feel like I'm getting a glimpse of what the timeline should have been when he talks about Rihanna in this way. Brett, what do you think?
I love his tweet about Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart. It's like Robert Pattinson should not take back Kristen Stewart. She cheated on him like a dog, as though dogs are like, we're boyfriend girlfriend, right? And then dogs go off and are like, I'm sorry, I slept with the chow chow next door. So stupid, but I love it. That's the thing about Trump. It's like, it's great when you don't care about the country you're living in, that it's run by a Twitter troll. Like if I lived in, like, I don't know, Portugal and this was happening, I'd be like, that is hilarious. But yeah, I prefer this. The idea that he said, like, there's stuff you could say about Rihanna. Like one time I was in the Burbank airport and she was next to me and she lost her ring, and she was the worst person on the planet. She was just so mean, because she dropped her ring and she was yelling at the person. This was like right before she got famous. And yeah, I can say that. I can say Rihanna was kind of mean to the TSA person, but it's a TSA. You can't say Rihanna's not talented.
Yeah.
You can't say she can't really sing. It's like, no, she's an amazingly talented person. You have to pick another thing to make fun of her for.
Sure, 100%. Yeah, like her fans sure seem to think that she's talented. There really does seem to be millions of people who think that she's talented.
You can disagree with it, like, but I'm not a fan of John Leguizamo. He's wildly talented. Like, I can say that.
He was
Jamie
good
Foxx,
in that
I don't love everything he's in. He's the most talented human being on the planet. I can distance myself enough from my feelings of some of his work to say this guy can do literally anything. Rihanna's the same way. Like, she's an amazing singer. Get 100%. Over it.
I know, it's so ridiculous. Anyway, just let's just have this be the thing that he spends the rest of his life doing. The next 4 years or so before he finally kicks it. Let's have him just opine on Taylor Swift or whatever. And that's it. Anyway. Okay. You let me know when we're good. Okay. And I'm gonna read a comment or two. We're already good.
Let's do it.
You're always so fast. Okay. It's the end of the week, and thus it is time to take out the trash. Brett, we've already talked about so much garbage. What could possibly remain as your garbage person of the week?
My garbage person of the week is a small man on the 5 on Fox News who decided that the hill he wanted to die on was saying that there's a lot of stuff besides slavery that built this country, particularly the people who financed the purchase of slaves. Take a look.
Black labor in the South contributed to an enormous amount of wealth for these plantation owners. Black slavery built Southern railroads, ports, but not a lot of white people owned slaves in the South. And it was abolished in the North in like 1804. It was never even in the West. So yes, they contributed to building parts of America, but so did the Irish, the English, the Scotch, the Welsh, the Germans. Everybody built America. And when you say who built something, well, who designed it? Who was the architect? Who financed it? Labor's just a part of it. So if we're going to have a conversation about reparations, which I'm open to since I'm 1% black.
Yeah, that's true.
And I might get a check. You have to talk about it accurately.
Slavery wasn't in the West. So we really need to credit the robber barons and like, he doesn't, it's the weirdest hill to die on. That this guy is like, listen, there's people that finance stuff. Don't they get the credit? That is just the saddest dog whistle in this conversation. And you know it's bad because even Gutfeld is like, I don't know what my guy's doing right now. Like when Gutfeld checks out, he's like, you're a one man, buddy. That's when you know that you've gone way too far. But like everything he said, he is giving credit to people who exploited, and he is equating things like Irish people with folks who are colloquially referred to as slaves that are owned by other people. Yep, those things are different, my guy. And you can't just say like, there's a lot of stuff that built America. It's like, that's not even the conversation people are having. And I have a feeling that he doesn't actually want to have the discussion of reparations.
No, I have a feeling
he's like, I'm open for it.
Probably doesn't.
It's so funny. It's so funny. It's not funny. It's terrible. Again, but like, he's such a tool.
As I love to point out, like, I love to get my right-wing populism from a guy saying that slave masters don't get enough credit. Like, there is no subjugation brutal enough that Fox won't tell you the person with the boot on your neck deserves to be applauded.
And
but again, right-wing populism.
Like a lot, like the railroads were were built in large part by like Chinese migrant labor, and the folks that died, all kinds of races and kinds of people died doing that.
But I'm sure we give credit to the people who told them to use that dynamite and died. Shouldn't we give them the credit?
Who lived on Fifth Avenue in the show The Gilded Age. Like, I feel they deserve some credit too. It's like they got it. It's not that they don't deserve, like they don't have any. They have the mansion. Well, we're putting it as the people who did it.
Like, why don't we give credit to the people who financed it? They became fabulously wealthy through slavery. That's what they got. Like, what about the Irish? What about the Germans? What do they get? They got paid because they weren't slaves. They got to vote and choose the representatives. They got to be citizens, you jackass. They got to live in a society where their families weren't split apart and they weren't routinely raped by the people who literally owned them. They got a lot, I think, okay? I think they probably got enough out of this. And sure, plenty of them were abused by the same capitalistic system, just not explicitly through racism. Although your turn, John. Could also be really rough. It's such utter garbage, utter garbage. Okay, my garbage person of the week worked all week to be utter garbage. And I mean trash, like real trash, just deep trash. I'm talking about Marjorie Greene, who is now allowed into security briefings and things like that. And she was allowed into one on the Chinese spy balloon. Now, rather than trying to pay attention, trying to learn something for the first time in her life, she apparently yelled profanities and acted irrational, according to multiple people that were involved in it. One lawmaker who attended it said that the exchange between Greene and the officials that were brought in to teach them about the situation included profanities. When she got to ask questions, she was yelling out, saying bull ass, and I don't believe you, just screaming and yelling, irrational in my estimation. Representative Gregory Meeks confirmed there was tension in the room because there's some members who just don't want to believe what they said. They say, oh, I don't believe you, that kind of thing. I don't trust you. So that's the kind of tension, yeah. Now, in her words, of course, she killed it. Every Karen thinks that their interaction was great. And why was that person walking on my street? She said, I had to wait in line the whole time. I was, I think, the second last person, and I chewed them out just like the American people would have. I tore them to pieces. I said the president may be a Democrat, but he's still the president of the United States, and they made him look like a fool and made him look weak the week before the State of the Union. I've said that publicly too, by not shooting it down. And I said there was nothing I heard there today that gave me any confidence in what they did. And I wasn't there. I wasn't at the actual thing, but I think we all know exactly what that interaction was like. We saw her and we saw Lauren Boebert in the Twitter hearings. These are not people who are capable of learning because they have no interest whatsoever. They think they know everything. Their ignorance is in their mind their strength. They went there to scream and shout and metaphorically and perhaps soon in the future throw poo. That's what they're there for. She is trash in every way that the word is generally used. We have video. Do we have time? I think we have time. Let's go to her talking about the other instance of her being trash. That is when she was acting like a primate during the State of the Union. Let's go to that.
Speaker McCarthy seems to think that you guys took the bait from the president last night. Did you guys take the bait from him?
I didn't take any bait. I'm a representative of the people, and that's exactly what I did last night. As a matter of fact, I got so many messages from people in my district and people across the country. It was like I won my election again. You know what? People are pissed off. And for the president of the United States to come into the people's house and lie like he did about the economy, the border, and then act like he's terrified of China and unwilling to talk about the fact they spied on us last night. Yeah, he got exactly what he deserved, and I am not sorry one bit. And I don't think Speaker McCarthy is upset with any of us for expressing our views and being unwilling to allow the president to lie. What am I going to do? Stand up and give golf claps? No, thank you. I don't clap for liars.
Yeah, she does frequently, actually. But again, no, she thinks that she killed it because there's nothing going on in there. There's no thought process. It is just going to become more just crass and disgusting and pointless. And look, you might say, well, at the end of the day, how much does that actually matter? They don't get much done anyway. And I get it. I have frustrations about that as well. And I have no doubt that she's right that a lot of her fans or whatever enjoyed it too. I'm sure they love it. If she were to literally ball up a handful of feces and throw it, I'm sure many people would clap for her. And she'd think that she killed that too. I, for one, think that it's kind of gross that this is, the greatest deliberative body in the history of the world, or whatever we were told it would be. And it's just devolved to, yeah, she's just gonna be jumping up and down, swearing and shouting and making it even less likely that anything gets done. What do you think, Brett?
The Senate's the greatest deliberative body, but only because they can talk forever. Yes. But the House is supposed to be like the fun one, but this wasn't fun. She's saying that Kevin McCarthy didn't censure her, maybe not formally, but he literally shushed her. He went, shh. Mm-hmm. He was a failure. He looked like such a dweeb. He would stand.
It was not a good shush.
It was a horrible. It was like this weird pouty lip, like shh. It's horrible. Orange County shush.
Maybe he should be my garbage person.
I mean, that man's a walking golf clap anyway. But yeah, and in turn, like you just have very simple questions we can ask her, like, did these balloons fly over America during the Trump administration? Yes. Did he shoot them down? No. Did Biden shoot one down? Yes. If so, what are you complaining about? Oh, just to complain. There's your answer. She looked insane. I'm glad she did it because she looked in like an unhinged weirdo, and she thinks she looks all cool with her like really interesting looking chinchilla jacket. But everybody that pointed out that she looks like the Real Housewives is like, yeah, absolutely right.
I did see that cat meme. That was pretty funny. I think Elon Musk posted it. Anyway, yes, and again, she learned that Trump had balloons and she's dispensed it. It's inconvenient and there's barely room for a couple of facts in her head anyway, so she willingly gave that one up. The fact that he shot it down, irrelevant. He should have shot it down earlier. Why? I don't know, just because he didn't and I can criticize him. And they say, well, it could have caused damage. It was so big. She tweeted, jetliners have crashed and not killed people on the ground. That's her defense.
Great point.
Sometimes things hit the ground and don't kill people. So we should take a chance on this killing people. If Biden handled the situation and nobody died, kind of seems like a win to me.
If they shot it down and it landed on someone, do you think Marjorie Taylor Greene would have been like, worth it?
Yeah, no, she would have defended Biden, I bet. She would have been consistent. Anyway, those are our garbage people of the week, but 47,000 of you voted, and here are your garbage people of the week. Coming in at number 5 with 1% of the vote is Marco Rubio for his ridiculous take on Balloongate. Turns out it all comes down to which state it crosses. Coming in at number 4 with 4% of the vote is Ron DeSantis for continuing his nonsense war on Disney. We have a tie for 2 and 3. At, I'll say 3 is 70% of the vote. Ron Mendive for wanting children to work for free lunch, even though that's illegal. At number 2, with 17% of the vote, also you do have Marjorie Greene for thinking one school in Illinois got $5.1 billion to teach CRT. Number 1, though, 61% of the vote is the GOP trying to cut entitlements while pretending that they're not. I personally love that that's the one that won, and thank you to everyone who voted. Thank you especially to Brett Erlich for joining us on the show. Thanks for being here, Brett.
Hey everybody, thank you for having me. Sorry about the beard. I will not appear visually, but I will appear auditorially tonight for Game Busters at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern after the main show, post game / bonus episode right here at twitch.tv/TYT. Check it out.
Nice. I'm gonna be leading the first hour of the Young Turks later on today, so definitely stay tuned for that. You've got Indisputable coming up and Unbossed, and especially the Watch List in its new time slot in the hour leading up to the Young Turks. So definitely check that out. For now, though, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon.